A warning before we start this episode, we do discuss some sensitive topics around mental health and suicidal thoughts. If anything we discuss affects you, there is a web address at the end of the episode and in our show notes where you can find help and advice. Hi, I'm Amy Vose and you're listening to the Build Up podcast brought to you by the Federation of Master Builders. I'm joined by building experts Aidan Cropper, Managing Director of Ipsum UK and based in Nottinghamshire, and David Gutierrez, Director of Nest Building Group based in Surrey, both FMB member companies. Now, before we start, I wanted to share with you a horrifying stat. Every single working day in the UK, 2 construction workers take their own life. With this in mind, mental health and wellbeing should be high on the agenda for all in the building industry. So on this episode of the Build Up podcast, we're talking about the help that's available for you and those around you and what you can do to raise the importance of mental health in your business. To help us tackle such a huge topic, we're joined today by Sarah Bolton from the Lighthouse Charity, the FMB's charity partner. They're the only charity that provides emotional, physical and financial well-being and support to the construction community and their families. Welcome to the show, Sarah. Can you tell us a little bit more about what Lighthouse do?
So we're a charity that are here to support anybody in construction, and we do that by covering physical, financial and emotional support. We have a 24-hour helpline, 7 days a week, that anybody can access for any of those areas of support.
And why is mental health such a big issue in the industry? Do you think it has a lot to do with the fact that obviously it's a very male-dominated industry and, you know, you associate a builder with that kind of macho image? Is that a big problem?
I think there's a lot of stigma around mental health in the industry. I think there is a predisposition for men to feel that they have to be the strong ones, that they can't show any weakness. And unfortunately, the stigma around mental health does correlate. People think it is a sign of weakness, which it isn't. And I think that's one of the reasons why they're not great at talking.
Yeah, no, that's true. And is that why you think they need to make it more of a priority for businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody needs to break down the stigma. Everybody has a responsibility to try and tackle the issue. And the more we talk about it, the more we make it permissible and the more we all share our experiences, the more people are going to be able to open up and think that's okay. It's okay not to be okay.
I was quite surprised when I first met you guys, David and Aidan. You were talking really openly about all sorts of things. So you're obviously good chatters, but has this struck a chord with you in your industry? Do you see this as a problem?
Yeah, 100%.
Massively, yeah.
Yeah, I've personally been through it. Never thought that I would. So you sort of, now I can look back, and you don't want it to happen again, even though it never really leaves you. When you're wearing loads of different hats, as Aidan said in one of our other podcasts, is that the pressures of what we're going through on a day-to-day basis can be overwhelming. We deal with a lot of different emotions on site as well. Clients, a little bit like what happens with a hairdresser and a barber, is that they'll open up and then they'll offload their anxieties or issues or whatever onto you as well. So you end up listening to that, you're retaining it, and years and years of that, plus your staff, and you're doing the right thing. So you're always trying to make sure that they're okay. But actually, a lot of directors forget about themselves massively. And then when it hits you, you don't realise. The telltale signs would be that if you love getting up in the morning and going to work, and as soon as you feel that you're in bed and you wake up and you feel sick or you feel scared, and this is what happened to me. Like, honestly, I felt like I just didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to move. I felt stomach, like my stomach was doing sort of somersaults, and it's so hard to get out of bed, just to get dressed, to kind of, and put a mask on. And actually what you're doing is you're slowly damaging yourself. Instead of being open and actually, I'm not all right. I need to take a break. I need time out. But it's really difficult because you need to provide for your family and you need to look after your staff, those that have staff. Those that don't, there's different pressures. You don't want to talk about it because it's that industry where it's it's hard to talk about it. Sometimes you don't actually want to talk about what's really happening because you don't know. I didn't know. I was going through it. And it hit me 2 years. In 2 years, I was going through that. And then I had just a bit of which I call a mini breakdown.
Do you mind me asking the sort of pressures? Was it in terms of the business wasn't going well? Was it financial or?
No, the business was actually at the top of the mountain. It was at the peak of the mountain, really. Wow. Life was great. My wife
on paper.
On paper. The kids were doing really well. Coffee shop was doing really well. It's great. Everyone can see all of this is great. To face value.
It's funny you say that.
Really, you're cracking inside.
Yeah, you sort of go
Horrible.
through peaks and troughs, don't you? I think it changes as you. So when I started out, I was on the tools, and there's that sort of pressure from, it's been absolutely freezing, and then you don't want to sort of show weakness, and you've got to crack on, and just really sort of get out there and put a brave face on, and then as you kind of move through, for me anyway, in my sort of journey into sort of management of company and then growing that company, there's financial pressures, which are really can be really awful. I think the biggest thing for me as well was there was a situation where we were expecting our first child, and she'd gone into labour, and then I was getting like messages because there was a problem on site, and it was the client wasn't happy with something, and it was just a really difficult situation. I think sometimes it's hard for people to understand that you actually take all that home with you, and it's part of running a business, and it forms. You do learn from that, but it's a really steep learning curve, and you do get through it. But it's it can be incredibly tough. There's obviously incredible highs as well, but I think it can really affect your mental health. And similar to you, I absolutely love building, and that's although the business needs to make money, I'm really passionate about what we do. Like, for same as you, David, and I just love it. But there have been times where you just think, I just don't want to get up in the morning. I want to just chuck it all in.
When it happens, nothing else matters.
Yeah,
I remember feeling numb and realizing actually I'm not all right. The first person that I opened up to was actually my wife, which was the biggest step. And then from that I needed to really take a stern look at myself and what I was doing and make changes, and that's the biggest thing. And you have to put finances or whatever to a side and actually go, well, actually my children need a dad, and my wife needs a husband, and before it gets any worse, and it was getting to that point, I needed to make a change. So it's such a weird little place to be, and I don't think once it happens to you, it doesn't leave you, because that emotion, I don't know whether you kind of hit a nerve and it's like a muscle memory of what happens to you. You don't want to go back there, but you look at the telltale signs, but also you look at what could have helped me. We talk a lot on site with the guys now. This has helped me. Sometimes you need a disaster to happen for something successful to help, right? And we sort of very, very much, we're open, and we talk about everything. Health, what's going on in our bodies, our heads, how we're feeling, it is so important.
Well, I was going to say, what were the things that helped you in that moment when you realised you had a problem? What were the things was it talking, did you open up to on site, or was it just with your wife? Or
I changed a lot within my business. I put myself first, and that was with the green light from my wife. I know it sounds a bit, but that's what we need. We the best thing I ever did was open up to her. I actually went and found a therapist that specialised in construction, something I've never done before.
Wow.
So I went to a therapist, paid. It wasn't cheap, but it was worth every single penny to open up to a stranger about what was going on in my life. And it was all, once we got to the bottom of it, it was work related. So I needed to change that. I was very fortunate to find that. There's other guys out there that are not. And, it can happen to anybody. The one that really struck me actually was and surprised me was actually there's a person who's online. I'm a bricklayer by trade, so I follow this bricklayer. I did, and what a fantastic bricklayer he was. Personality wise, he was fantastic. Everything just was all there. It was like, wow. And he took his own life. Why? Because we don't talk. We're in our own heads. We're in an industry where we don't turn up to offices like this. Our office is dull and dingy, and it can be very cold and wet. And wet and muddy. And and if we don't make the best of a bad situation of when we're working in them situations, in them environments, it can really get to you. And if you're lonely on site as well, there's some sites where there's decorators, for example, some one-man band decorators. All they've got is their AirPods and their thoughts. When you're left with your own thoughts, sometimes if you're working in the garden, sometimes if you've got a couple of hours to yourself, your head takes you anywhere, doesn't it? So imagine having that on a daily basis.
And what do you think you can do to help employers, on site? What can we do to make that change in the work environment?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the symptoms you're both kind of relating and describing is vicarious trauma. It's the drip effect. So you're listening to other people's trauma, and then you're not, they class it as an emotional cup. That's what our mind is like. And it only has a certain amount of capacity before you can't take any more, and it's normally the really smallest thing that any other day would be inconsequential and you wouldn't even bother about it. And that's what tips you over, and it just becomes all too much. I mean, in your situation, you're very lucky you had a support network with your family and your wife, and you had the means to go and seek out a counsellor. But there, as you're saying, there's a lot of people, the bricklayer that you've referred to, who didn't have that, or they didn't feel, he may have had that, but he didn't feel that he could speak to somebody, and it wasn't permissible. And I think that's the biggest thing. It is permissible to speak about it. It's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength that you can say, look, I need help.
Yeah.
And actually to reach out for that support is massive. And that's what, we want more people to do with our charity, is to reach out to the support. We've got amazing services. And the sad thing for us is when we hear stories like that we could have intervened and hopefully have supported, and they didn't reach out, or they didn't know we were there, maybe, that may be an issue as well.
I think sometimes as well I think it's, it's interesting, all the points you made. And I think sometimes you don't necessarily, and David said it earlier, is that I don't think sometimes you realise, like you can be sort of slipping down this sort of slippery slope of depression, really, and get yourself into a real sort of unhappy situation. And quite often, depending on your circumstances, but there might not be a way out. You might not feel like there's a way out. And what is the support network around you? And especially if you're, like you say, a one-man band, or you're just working, you might be working in a partnership, but you might not be getting on particularly well with your partnership. It could be down to financial situations. And I think it's why it needs more conversations like this, because sometimes it's just, for me, I think it was a massive relief, particularly when I sort of joined the FMB as well, and there's that community. You start speaking to people, and actually you think, everyone's in the same.
Yeah, you're not alone.
And because you think sometimes it might be just you, or at least you can say, kind of honestly, if you think this is normal, and actually it's not. And that's when you can almost, if you get the support at that point, I think it sort of helps you get through it and come out the other side.
I was very fortunate with the situation that I had in the background anyway. But if I was, a tradesperson going on site, let's just say in London, and, I haven't got that money behind me, or I need to support my family, I have to, because if I don't go in, I don't get paid. If I was in that situation with that mindset that I was in, I don't know where I would be.
Yeah.
So I think that's why the numbers are so scary, because actually we're talking on a director's basis of the stress and strains that we go through. But imagine the stress and strains of a tradesperson that's going to work hand to mouth, renting and not owning, and have a real difficult, maybe going for a divorce or something, like, you just don't know what someone's background.
No.
It's really difficult. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors.
Yeah.
So talking about it and having that kind of encouraging the talk. So I would urge the the more the larger companies, let's call the larger companies out there, not the SMEs, but the larger ones, they should introduce that a lot more on site, and have an area where they can talk, or there could be a language barrier as well on site on these sites.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the big tier ones, the larger companies, are doing really great things, and they're putting in a lot of support metrics. But what tends to happen is the subcontractors on the sites, and we hear this all the time, they don't think that support is for them. So because they're not directly employed by the tier one or the prime on the site, they see all the posters and they see the things that are there, but they think, oh, it's not us because we're not directly employed. And actually it is for them, it is for everybody, but it's still that stigma, it's still the barrier.
And if there is someone on site, who is struggling and they don't have that support network, like you say, they're going through a divorce, or they're not, they're not in that relationship, they don't have anyone to turn to, what can Lighthouse offer them? What kind of services? Is it talking directly to someone?
So we have many services. So if they're working away from home, we have our Beacons network. So there's over 400 beacons across the UK and Ireland. And if they're not living at home and they haven't got a network and they need to talk to somebody, they can go to these. They're completely free of charge. You can just turn up. There's an interactive map. You can find your most local one to you. We've also got our 24/7 helpline and our live chat. So our live chat is in 120 languages, so that they can log on in their own language. Because some people aren't actually brave enough to pick up the phone. But if you start with a live chat, it's manned by a real human, and they can, translate into any language you need, and then they can access the support from there. And the process will be they'll access it either through the telephone line or the live chat. They'll speak to a helpline advisor and they'll get referred to a caseworker. If they need, that's if they've got multiple problems. If they just need counselling, we've got a range of different counselling services, from talking therapies, PTSD, trauma, addictions, lots of different services that they can, and they'll get the 6 free sessions immediately.
That's amazing.
So we can get you into counselling within 24 hours. And considering most boroughs, you've got a 26-week wait. So it's a quick solution. We also have our MRV tours, which you may have seen, that go round to sites, and they're tradespeople with lived experience that talk about how they can reach out. So we spoke to over 28,000 people last year, and we actually did 89 active rescues. So 89 people approached our team and said that they had suicidal ideations or plans. Nice. So they were ready to go. And we've got them all into counselling and into positive solutions. So that there is lots of support out there. The problem for us is getting people to know that we're out there.
Yeah, that's incredible. In terms of, you were touching on, David, about how, you don't know what people are going through. Are there any signs that you can look out for if someone is struggling and you think they might need help?
Yeah, we do offer some training as well. So there you can do the half-day mental health first aid awareness, which I would also encourage, the slightly larger companies to get somebody on site that has this training. It's free for us. You can apply online for us and get it for free. But this gets you to spot the signs and symptoms of your team or your workmates that may be struggling, and how to approach it and the best things to do around that. And I think the more people that can feel confident enough to say, are you okay? And that's normally all it is, actually. It's just that one sentence. And I think what people need to know is you don't have to have all the answers, because people get a bit worried. Well, what if they ask me something I don't know the answer to, or I'm not a counsellor? It's not about that. It's about a human contact, and it's just about somebody actually able to listen. So if you can just spare the time to actually listen to the person, sometimes that's all they need.
I think that's an interesting point as well, because in a lot of businesses, you've not necessarily got the resource stuff like HR department or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think in what you offer would be, obviously, is a massive benefit, and would take some pressure away from the business owners as well, because obviously it might not be something that they. That might be something they've not just factored in, or they've not thought about, and actually they've got a workforce there that, are struggling. So just to have that as an option is amazing.
Yeah, I think it does help as well. It gives you a bit of confidence to be able to open the conversation, and that's one of the main things, really.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, the support's there, but what can you start doing as a business to make a difference? We're breaking it down into some easy, actionable and achievable steps. So here is your challenge for today. Taking 20 minutes over a coffee break, think about 5 simple things that you can do in your business to support and normalise talking about mental health. Make a plan, which you will do first, what help you might need and what you can start to do tomorrow morning. Aidan, we've chatted about this a little bit. Can you think of things that you could do in your business?
We all meet on a Friday afternoon in the pub. and we try and do that because we've got various sites all over the place. So it tends to be one of those times that we all come together, and we might be passing each other, and people have got different stresses on different sites, and it's just a nice way of coming together and just all of us out there. So this is the guys and girls in the office and the people on site as well, and it's a really positive thing. But I think for me, I probably need to focus more individually as well, because that's a great outlet for people, but some people might not actually feel comfortable talking you're still in a group situation, and you're with your peers as well, and the people that they work with. So they might not want to sort of express, how they're actually feeling. So I think for me, just having those one-to-ones on a more of a regular basis, which again is difficult because of resource, but I think it's it's massively important, and it's something I definitely need to implement into my business moving forward.
I think as well, not making you the only person. Is there somebody else as well that people, you generally find that there's somebody that people gravitate to?
Yeah.
That's what we've got a guy called James. Everyone gravitates to him.
Yeah.
He's one of our foremen. He's a fantastic guy. He's a likable personality as well, and he finds that a lot of the guys ring him in the morning. So we've had discussions. He's worked for me for over 20 years. So he's a good guy and understands.
Is he like a foreman then? Is he like
absolutely? Yeah. And he's that guy. I think. If we talk, all of us talk. We do a lot more talking. We do meet down the pub. Some of them are a bit health freaky, so which I like. So we tend to kind of just catch up.
Yeah.
We do a lot more catching up as a team. We will go out for a meal on a Thursday night, say, and there's a lot more of that social, and that's helped us massively. We talk more away from the environment of work, and we open up about what's going on in life. So, and actually, we've got some really good feedback from the guys saying, this just really helps me.
Yeah.
And it feels like we are a family.
Yeah.
So we're talking like that now.
Yeah.
And it's strange and it makes people smile, but we will talk about the way we feel. Well, some of us getting older, we don't want to go great. It's little tiny little things like, my body's giving up now because we're in such a physical job. This is all we've got. We listen to that and say, okay, well, we can help you as directors. We can actually do something because we don't want you to feel that way. Let's see what else we can do within this industry to help you.
I think doing things over text as well, or WhatsApp or whatever, because I think it's really interesting that you've got like a chat function. Now, any website, like if I've got like an issue or I need some information, I always use the chat function because it's just you get an instant response. Somebody's there. It's quicker. And also for some people, like you might not want to have that like face-to-face discussion. Like if you put it into writing, it's just easy to sort of broach it, isn't it? And have that, get that quick response. So I think that's great. And I think also in like our businesses, just, I was thinking before that it might be worth me kind of start sending a message, on a regular basis just to say, how you doing? Because I think, it feels like it's an easier way for them to respond. They probably feel more comfortable just putting it in a message rather than having a face-to-face discussion and putting a front on it. So
it takes an awful lot of courage, I think, to actually verbalise that or to pick up the phone because you're never really sure what's going to be the response, and people think they're going to be a bit judgmental, or they're going to say pull yourself together, or
you will get that. You will get that. I got that. Which is then and that's not helpful.
No.
So you've got to accept that if you're ready to open up or you're not feeling right, but you're confused why you're not feeling right, because it is such a confusing stage in your life if it happens to you, because then you're like, is this what it is? Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I thinking this is depression or is it not depression? What's depression? What does it mean? Does it mean because I don't want to go to work? It's such a strange, but when you're not feeling right within yourself, the telltale signs that I would say as well is that you want to look out for someone who usually generally kind of looks after himself. And if that slips, hair, like if the person's not getting a lot of hair, haircuts or shaving, or I know that it sounds a bit silly, but that's something that's massive. That's the first thing that will slip. and also just not caring. So in conversation, I don't care about that. I'm not bothered about this. I'm very negative, and there's no positive. Then that's definitely something to look out for as well. If someone's always negative, then it's not a good thing.
There's the flip side of that as well, where people are, the joker on site, the one that's always very happy, and actually you don't actually know what's going on, and then they're not there anymore.
It's that advert, isn't it? I think it was Norwich.
Oh gosh,
Norwich FC.
So powerful.
Powerful. That got me. And to be fair, I think the tears of the clown. I was the tears of the clown.
Yeah.
Like that. You can't see through this. I won't let you.
It's a facade.
A facade, yeah. And there is a lot of that.
Yeah. Well, that's all really useful stuff. Drop us a line at buildup@fmb.org.uk. Let us know what you're going to implement in your business, and we'll share it on our socials and tag your business in as well. But also, Sarah, in terms of your business, implementing things to help mental health, that can really help, can't it, with staff morale, less sick days, all that kind of stuff. So it really benefits everyone.
Yeah, I mean, there is a financial implication to having a healthy workforce. The ROI on it is for every pound spent is something like £7 in return, approximately. For keeping, it's easier to keep and retain a healthy workforce than it is to keep re-recruiting and retraining. And, so for the people that are a bit not as convinced, even if you just look at the more financial elements, it's worth investing in your workforce, definitely.
And Sarah, also financial pressures is obviously a huge thing that it can very easily cause mental health issues. So in terms of that, with a lot of builders being self-employed, you're running a business, is there any financial and practical help and support that Lighthouse offer?
Yeah, so obviously the stigma around financial situations is just as bad as emotional support. But we can offer lots of different things, from buying your food shop to paying your rent arrears, to getting you into a financial sustainable pathway moving forward. So we don't give out any cash, though, just to make that clear. But what we do is we'll provide you with goods and services in the meantime. And what we do is make sure that you're maximising your income, reducing your debt, and getting you into a sustainable pathway.
That's amazing. And another thing we wanted to touch on was just talking about, in this industry, there is a bit of a typecast of what a builder is like, which we mentioned a bit earlier. But in terms of sexuality and diversity in the trade, is that an issue that, creates a lot of problems?
Yeah, we do have calls around ED&I and, how they don't feel comfortable saying around their sexuality because of the banter on site, and how they wouldn't be accepted, or they feel that they might be, cast out for their different sexuality.
How do you find that on site, guys, in terms of, I guess that's something that...
Yeah, that's something that we were just talking about. It's a fine line between banter and bullying. Banter is a good morale for especially for a construction site and for a team in a whole. But there is a fine line between when the banter turns into bullying, and everyone knows when it turns wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that we've evolved as a country, we've evolved as a world, that actually, we shouldn't look at things in tunnel vision. That things are not just black and white nowadays, right? And so it's being very careful, being mindful with your banter. I know that's silly. I know that sounds strange to say, because banter just should just flow, right? But it shouldn't be bullying. And I think that a lot of people say that, it's only a bit of banter, when actually, no, mate, it's bullying, it's racist. So for me, both my parents don't come from England, right? So when I grew up in the 80s, there was a lot of stuff that was said, and it stays with you. It doesn't leave you. So then, obviously, choosing this industry as a career path and cracking on with that, there was a few things, said to me, and you brush it off, but it's not nice. And these things can be very hurtful.
I think also as well, the industry in general, sort of coming into the industry, and I think there's still a stigma around being a tradesperson. I think, and I think that can be, you're almost starting off from a low point, I think, and it's really disappointing that I think still that, academic studies are sort of prioritised as a way forward in as a career and in life, when there's this industry that is thriving and is a great place to be. But I think in terms of morale and, like you say, bullying, there's certain hierarchies within construction industry as well. So if you're a labourer, you might get banter or bullying for being a labourer, but fundamentally that's a pathway. And it's I always say when we're on site, the work that they do, and we've touched on it before in terms of like making sure things are clean, that should be done by everybody, and those roles are important as any other role. So I think things need to change, and people need support. And I think the level that that the industry's at needs to be, or the profile of the industry that we're in now needs to be raised, because it's a great place to be, and I think it would make people feel better about the way that we're working.
Yeah, we can talk about the doom and gloom, but actually the industry has changed, and there is more diversity in construction. Not enough, but there is. And it's down to us and this podcast, for example, is the reason why we're doing it, to make change, right? If we strongly believe that we should make change, I go out, I volunteer, I talk to schools and colleges, and actually say, well, we haven't got enough, girls, for example, in construction. Let's be honest, right? And they would clean up in this industry. Everyone, we trust the girl more than the boy.
Agree.
They're more switched on than us. But this is it. We need to encourage this. This is very important.
But I think for a lot of women, I imagine they'd find, I think I'd find it pretty intimidating walking on site. So have you noticed a change in that respect? Or, whether it's a different ethnic background or a woman walking on site, have you noticed a change, or is it still that element of feeling, a bit of an intimidating atmosphere? Let's be honest.
There is a change, but it hasn't changed enough.
No, there's still a long way to go.
There is a long way to go, and we need to maneuver ourselves away from that kind of industry. Some of the stuff online is funny. These funny things happen on site, and it's proper geezers doing it and all this sort of stuff. But that's really, to be honest, that's not the look that this industry needs. This industry is a professional industry.
Yeah.
Okay. We have fun on site, banter to a degree, like everywhere else, not overstepping the mark. You can't overstep a mark in an office. It should be exactly the same on a building site. And also you need to educate the educators as well. I just wanted to sort of throw that one in there.
Yeah.
And you need to advocate. I mean, if you go into colleges now, we do a lot of work in colleges, and I've stood in a college and heard the class next door saying, if you don't behave, you're going into construction. So it's not the place to go for punishment. It's not where the naughty children go. There's some really amazing careers in construction.
There's also the digital age now as well, which is massive. And I think I was at I think it was at an FMB event actually, and there was somebody talking there, and they were talking about the Minecraft generation and people coming through that feel as though they haven't really got a place in society and a future, like a future work path. And actually, but they're amazing at playing Minecraft. It's like, and actually that in itself is an amazing tool. And now there's this digital age, and there's the golden thread. The information has to pass through various digital platforms, and it's becoming a much more bigger part of construction, and we haven't got those skills in the construction industry at the minute. So those guys and girls are really, really valuable to the future of construction now and industry. Exactly. The industry's changing, isn't it? And it's cool. Like, it's changing. There's modern methods of construction.
It's not bad to get your inner geek out. I love that.
But also, you're still going to need practical people to physically build the houses.
You could be amazing at school, and really your academic kind of background's fantastic. You're a diamond in the rough. You could be so good with your hands, or just your design, your like you've got so much to offer. So I don't think that the red carpet's not rolled out enough for these guys.
No.
To they should be podcasters. Oh, we're on a podcast. But that's what they're all looking for.
Yeah.
And then but yeah.
That's another thing, isn't it? Because people see construction as a harsh environment.
Yeah.
So if you're not that resilient, you're not going to choose. You'll be like, oh no, that might be a bit tough for me. Whereas actually, you do get looked after in construction. There are a lot of places, we look after people. A lot of tier ones and SMEs are starting to put processes in to support people. So it is a good industry to come into. You can have an amazing career. You can earn really good money.
Mm-hmm.
And if you start off doing one trade, you think it's not for me, there's lots of other pathways. It doesn't mean you just leave. You can come and try it out, and there's some really good. It's
an industry that just doesn't stop giving.
No,
you get out what you put in. The building where we're obviously sitting here now, builders, should I say, built this. A designer designed this. Construction in a whole. So it's massive. And I think that we haven't touched on COVID, and I think that COVID's got obviously a massive, it has to answer to quite a lot. Our industry never stopped. And to be honest with you, which I didn't hit on, which I started to realise that I was going into a bad place, was COVID was one of them things that accelerated it. Construction never stopped. And that was made very clear. So within my contract with the client, and they were strict with that, I couldn't stop work because it was like I would be deciding that we would stop. So I had to offer it out to the guys. There was only a few. We were like a skeleton kind of crew.
That's really difficult.
Dealing with it was so difficult.
We had so many calls over COVID saying we're being used as the guinea pigs.
We had the opposite though, in that we did stop, but then the financial pressures kicked in, and it was like, what's going to happen with the company? We're going to have to go under. Like literally genuine questions over whether we'd be able to keep going because we couldn't go back in. The client was living there. They were, obviously anxious about us going back in and the team of people going back in. And we did go back probably slightly earlier than everybody else. And but it sort of all of those pressures and those financial pressures, and obviously the furlough scheme was introduced, which was a massive help at the time. But like my mental health was struggling.
It sort of accelerated mental health issues within our industry, and there was bullying going on. We had it internally with one of our guys who verbally attacked another guy that worked for us who got public transport. So he was saying that you're bringing in germs into the site, so I'm taking that home to my family. And then us, the owners of the company, that then we have to turn into manage that and mediate all of this. But at the same time thinking, maybe he's right, but maybe you shouldn't be saying that. Don't worry about that. It's your only way to get into work. So it was such a difficult time, and I'm surprised we didn't touch on that, but we have, and it's it's there. There's loads of different factors.
Thank goodness for Lighthouse. And I know we touched on different ethnic backgrounds, and you said you have, is it over 100 languages?
120. So when you go onto the chat function, there's a little world, and you click on it, and you can select the language.
Yeah, so cool. Brilliant. That's cool. Yeah,
so good.
It automatically translates to and fro.
Well, Sarah, you've given us a lot to think about. It's been so useful and actionable advice as well that everyone can use to make it better in the industry. So thank you for joining us, and let everyone know where we can find you, the important details that everyone needs.
So our website is www.lighthousecharity.org, and we've got a 24/7 helpline. All the details are on there, and obviously Instagram, or all the other things.
You can find out more about what you can do to support mental health and wellbeing in your business in our on-demand webinar at fmb.org.uk/wellbeing, or drop us a line at buildup@fmb.org.uk. If anything that we've spoken about today has affected you or someone you know needs help, please check out the Lighthouse Charity, www.lighthousecharity.org. Thanks for listening to this episode. Join us for more helpful tips and advice on our next episode of the Build Up podcast. A big thank you to Sarah Bolton for being with us today, and also to my co-hosts Aidan Cropper and David Gutierrez. See you next time.